If I lost everything, and I'm talking about my physique, my discipline, my routine, this video right here is going to show you exactly what I would do in order to get everything back in as little time as possible. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Iran, and I coach high-performing men who make really good money but have secretly kind of let themselves go when it comes to their health and fitness. And I hear the same excuses all the time. Really just things like, oh, I'm too busy with work, or I just don't have the time for it, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And at the end of the day, one thing I've really realized after working with so many different men is that most of the time you're not actually lazy, you're really just overloaded. There's a whole lot of things that you're trying to do in the workplace, and then by the time you get home and you have to try to focus on your fitness, it's a little bit more challenging. So I built a system to help you simplify the whole thing. In terms of why you should listen to me, I've lost over 25 pounds, anywhere between 25 to 30 pounds myself, while working 10-hour days doing corporate banking. And I did all this without having to track my macros or doing any kind of intense cardio or anything like that. So I did it in a very sustainable way, and I actually created a whole method around that. And that's exactly how I coach other men who are in six-figure jobs who are looking to simplify their fitness. It's exactly how I coach them to also reclaim control of their fitness. In order to achieve these results, I just focus on three things for myself and my clients. So the first one is P, which is protein. The second one is C, which is calories burned. And the last one is T, which stands for time in the gym. So super simple. I just like to call it PCT. It's just easier that way. So this video is going to show you exactly what you need to do in your life in order to kind of make these changes that I spoke about. I'm going to talk about four main things, which is going to be your mindset, your training, your nutrition, and your lifestyle. Another thing too that's important to note is that this system, it works even when everything in your life seems like it's on fire and is like in chaos. And this exact system helped one of my clients go from working 14-hour days, being super out of shape. His energy was all over the place. He wasn't consistent in the gym or with his diet. And it went from him being in that state to now he's shredded, visible six-pack abs. You know, his whole life's in order. He's doubled his energy levels and he's way more productive at work. And he was able to do all of that without necessarily having to add any extra stress or chaos to his life. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and actually watch the video to the end. But don't just watch it. Like actually, I don't know, open up your phone, take like the notes app or something, or like get like a pen and paper and like write it down if you're old school like that. Just because there's so much information that I'm trying to put into this video, and I'm trying to like condense this as much as possible to make it so that this really is going to be the last weight loss or muscle gain video that you're ever going to need. So don't just like watch this mindlessly. I actually want you to like take notes because there's going to be a lot of things you can learn from it. And if you already find that you're doing most of these things or you're doing some of these things, there's always something that you can like learn or a different perspective you can like learn things from. So I won't just explain it from like my perspective, I'll also explain it from my client's perspective as well, and how maybe the average person might perceive some of these things. And that might kind of uncover some of the different maybe common misconceptions or stuff like that that you might have around certain fitness topics. So again, don't just watch this mindlessly. Actually take notes, sit down, watch it all the way through. You might have to watch this video once or twice just to really make sure you're soaking in all the information, because I'm going to go in detail and I'm going to make sure that by the time you watch this video, you'll know exactly what to do to actually get in shape. And you know, it's summertime right now at the time of this being posted. So if you are looking to obviously get in shape for the summer, you'll have the exact protocols of what exactly you need to do as well. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first part of this video is going to talk about mindset. And honestly, this is one of the things that I wish I knew and understood fully when I was working a six-figure job at RBC doing corporate banking. I hated my life, by the way. And like my whole life was falling apart. And I was trying to keep up with my fitness because obviously fitness was the one thing I used to try and anchor everything else in my life. But it felt like everything was falling apart, or I mean, it was. And I wish I understood how important having the right mindset was. So that's why this is going to be the first part. And it's the most important part. And I think it's also one of the parts which is the most overlooked by a lot of people who are looking to get in shape. I've seen so many cases of people who get in amazing shape, but then 6 months later, they're back to normal. It's because they can't sustain the body that they have because they don't have the mindset to support the body that they've built. And so that's why it's so important that before you actually build the body, you have to build the mind. Because if you don't build the mind well enough, you will never be able to sustain the actual body. So let's get into mindset. All right, so getting into mindset, first things first, your body is a direct scorecard of your beliefs. One of the things that's like very clear is that most men, they don't need a better plan. They just have to stop quitting and start sticking to the plan that they actually have. You know, people are always looking for that next thing or that newest thing to try, but they don't stick to what they have long enough for it to actually work. They don't give it an actual shot to actually work. because they're always switching and changing gears. That's not how fitness works. So when it comes to mindset, there's also 3 lies that I've heard men tell themselves like more than anything, over and over and over and over and over. So I'm gonna write these down on a noteboard right here. So everyone got that? Your body is a scorecard of your beliefs. That's the first thing I want you to really understand when it comes to mindset. Okay, now we're talking about the 3 lies. 3 lies. So now getting into the lies and then the truths. So first lie that I hear all the time is I don't have time. The thing is, you haven't made it a non-negotiable. And until you make fitness and taking your health seriously, it's never going to become important. Because there's this one quote that I really, really love, and I quote it all the time. It's like, you can have 1,000,001 problems until you have a health problem. And then you only have one problem, which is your health problem. Imagine you have all the money in the world, but who cares if you can't get out of bed? You know what I mean? Everything's important until your health's important. And when your health's important, oftentimes for a lot of people, it's kind of too late, you know? So that's why the smart people and the people who are wise, they actually are proactive about taking care of their health, and they make their health a priority first so that they don't end up having to, you know, rechange their whole life just to kind of like fit their health needs. So just think about it like this. Think about like the sick billionaire or whatever. I was literally playing Monopoly Go. Where's that? I was playing Monopoly Go the other day. Okay, I can't find it, but I was playing Monopoly Go the other day. For those of you who don't know, Monopoly Go, it's like a little card game that you can play. And essentially, it's similar to the real Monopoly game, but in this, you need to collect 3 different sets of properties. And in case you're confused, like you'll understand where I'm going in like a second. So in the game, you can get money and you can also get properties. Obviously, the money will protect you if someone tries to steal properties from you or if someone tries to, you know, attack you in the game. So you can use the money to kind of defend yourself. But you need 3 properties if you actually want to win the game. And you can win the game and have 0 money. So if you're still wondering where I'm going with this, I'm about to connect the dots real quick. So when I was playing, I ended up winning, and the person who I beat was saying that, oh, well, I have all this money, and the money wasn't able to like protect me from winning. It wasn't able to guarantee my success in this game. And I was like, yeah, that's the point. The point is to collect the properties, not to collect money. And I think so many people go through life, you know, they don't necessarily prioritize their health. They prioritize literally everything else, and they end up losing the game. Either they're overweight, they're super tired all the time, so their energy levels drop. They're fatigued. They can't walk up a flight of stairs without like, they're not as strong as they should be. Their body's just not optimized. They're just not healthy enough. So I think a lot of people kind of like miss the point of life when it comes to that. And that's kind of one of the things I saw. It's so easy to kind of get caught up in the trap where it's like, oh, I don't have time. I need to make time for this. I need to make time for that. Okay, well, what about the time where, you know, you're so sick, you literally can't get out of bed? Now nothing else matters. You're going to put everything else on pause. You're going to put work on pause. You're going to put this on pause. Oh, that concert you want to go to next week? Oh, canceling that. Everything else goes on pause just because you need to fix your health problem. And in my head, it's just like, okay, well, if health is so important, why don't we actually prioritize it? But for a lot of people, that's not necessarily the most logical thing to do. But you're smart because you're watching this video, and so that's exactly the belief that we need to change, and that's exactly what I'm going to try and break down for you. So next thing is going to be work is too crazy. So that's a lie. The truth is that chaos is consistent. And I think another thing too that I also want to touch on is there's no perfect time in life. I mean, everyone's always busy. I mean, everyone's busy, and things are never. It's never always smooth sailing for everyone, right? So that whole like lie that, oh, I'll just wait till stuff calms down. It's never gonna cool down. It's not gonna happen. And so there's this one quote by I believe it's Alex Hormozy, and he talked about how if you want to learn how to navigate in any weather, you need to be able to like sail when the times are uncertain. I kind of paraphrased a little bit. I don't know the exact quote for quote, but essentially I'll use another analogy, and I love using analogies to explain just because I feel like it paints the picture that much better. But essentially with this analogy, what he was talking about was that if you are like a sailor, right? You want to sail the biggest boat. Cool. If you only practice sailing when it's sunny outside, you're only going to be good at sailing when it's sunny outside. But if you can practice sailing when there's tornadoes, when it's raining, when it's cloudy, then there's never going to be a weather where you're not able to actually sail. Because if you can sail when it's tough, you can sail when it's easy. But if you can only sail when it's easy, you'll never be able to sail when it's tough. And so I think when it comes to fitness, people wait for everything in their life to be perfect. And they wait for, maybe the kids to become 18 and so they're out the house, so they have less responsibilities. They wait for them to get less projects at work. Or they wait to, whatever. They have like a million and one things that they're waiting on. And only when all those criteria are hit, then they're like, okay, time to do my fitness. And the problem with that is that, let's say you do wait. You wait for the kids to be 18, you wait for them to leave the house. And now you're doing your fitness and then whatever. Now what happens when your sister-in-law is like, oh, I need to drop my son off at yours for like 6 months. And now you have to live with like a kid for 6 months again. Again, random situation, but now you have to a kid to live with. Now you have to default to waiting for the kids to leave again before you can go back to the gym. Why? Because you never actually learned how to integrate your fitness into your routine, into your lifestyle when things weren't like the perfect conditions. Maybe that example is like a little bit off, but I think you kind of understand the general consensus and general sense of what I'm trying to get to. So that's the second lie. The third lie is that I need more motivation. And this is something that you hear, or that I hear all the time. People always talk about motivation. And then I'm sure you've seen the whole stuff where it's like, oh, don't be motivated, just be disciplined. It's like, yeah, true, but how do I be disciplined? And so that's how you fix it. That's how we fix it. So we're not just going to be disciplined, like right here, we're also going to have automation. Automation means that we do things automatically. We do things on repeat. We do things like it's scheduled. And if you're watching this, you're probably a high-performing man, working a corporate job. You understand that your life, and at least work, for example, it runs on calendars. You don't just wake up and you're like with your boss, hey, let's have a meeting. It's like, no, that was booked like last week, or that was booked 2 weeks ago. Or we have a weekly catch-up, or we have a morning deep, like you have systems, you have schedules. And whether or not you feel like showing up to the meeting on said day, you still show up because it was planned, it was automated. And so then in another 2 weeks, you're going to have that same meeting. So let me do whatever it takes, whatever's required to prepare for that next meeting. Same thing with fitness. So fitness, we're going to automate. We want to automate our workouts. We want to automate our meals so that the day of, when you don't feel like cooking, it's like, well, I already made the food I'm going to eat today. Or when you don't feel like working out because I don't know what workout to do today, well, my workout was already planned for me today. So we remove that guesswork, and it just removes another layer of excuses that we could potentially give ourselves to not do something. So again, three lies, and then the truths that I have to kind of like back each of them up. And one of the things I found so interesting was that when I was working at Royal Bank of Canada, and for those of you who don't know, Royal Bank of Canada is the biggest bank here in Canada. And I was working on their corporate banking team, specifically with the corporate client group. And my portfolios were in the tech space, tech and healthcare. Those are my two portfolios, like the two verticals that I was in. Like looking back now, it was interesting seeing how much effort I put into work and into kind of like taking everything at work so seriously. But when it came to my personal health and fitness, I kind of treated it like a side project. Like the work was the main project, but then my own personal health, yeah, that's a side project. Whatever time I have left, yeah, I'll focus on that. But it was only when I started putting more effort, more energy into myself that I was able to be a lot more productive at work. I had more energy, I was a lot more vibrant, a lot more charismatic. And in turn, that actually bought me time back at work. It's funny how it works. And I think this is the biggest mindset shift that helped me, is that high performers, we don't get results from our emotions. We get results from our systems. And so if your systems are poor and if your systems aren't very good, you won't get very good results, especially when you work in like a high stress, highly corporate environment. Everything runs on systems. You can't just freestyle your way. You can't just, figure it out and kind of find some kind of success. You have to be very disciplined, very what's that word? Very intentional with what you do, with everything you do actually. And just to recap, high performers do not get results from their emotions, they get results from their systems. And so if you have poor quality systems, it's going to show in your results. So that's the first thing I needed to change in order to kind of like, make the transformation I did, where I was able to lose over 25 pounds, almost 30 pounds while working 10-hour workdays, and then also running this coaching business on the side, and then also having time for, you know, friends, family, social life, all that stuff, and also still going to the gym as well, and then doing the diet, nutrition, all that stuff. So the only way it was possible was because I had systems and not because I was doing stuff when I felt like it. Because if I was just going based off how I felt, I wouldn't have done half the things I did. So that's the biggest mindset shift that you need to make, is that, you know, you need systems and you have to stop relying on your emotions. All right, next thing is gonna, oh shit. All right, so next thing is gonna be training. And if I had just 3 hours per week, this is exactly how I would train. So 3 hours per week, I would make sure my split is either one of these two. So listen up, you got two options. You got push-pull legs, and then you got upper lower full body. In my personal opinion, what I give my clients and what I think is better is the upper lower full body. And I can explain why. But if you're more familiar with the push-pull legs, just run it. At the end of the day, training is only 20% of the battle anyway. So, I mean, it's not really that important what split you actually do. Nutrition is where we should spend the most time on. And so that's going to be the next chapter. But for the most part, I'd pick between one of these two splits. I think this one is better, so upper lower full body. But regardless of whatever split you choose, they all work. But this is the thing that you want to make sure you're doing. You want to make sure that you're splitting your workout into two different sections. So you're going to have a strength part and you're going to have a hypertrophy part. And if you're a little bit confused as to like, okay, what is a strength part? What is a hypertrophy part? And why you have like 1/3 here? Why do you have 2/3 there? I'll explain. So with the strength, I want 1/3 of your workout. So if you're working out for an hour, that means 20 minutes. 20 minutes is going to be on strength. And then that's going to mean the other 40 minutes is going to be on hypertrophy. So strength, when I say strength, I want you to just be doing like heavy compound exercises. So stuff like bench press, stuff like squats, stuff like deadlifts. That's going to be strength movements. So I want you to spend 1/3 of your time at the gym doing the strength, so the heavy compounds. And then the other 40 minutes is going to be done on hypertrophy. So these are going to be using stuff like machines and also the dumbbells. And obviously you still can do compound movements for, like, you know, when you're using the hypertrophy section, but I want to reserve this mainly for like accessories and like some compound movements. So strength is exclusively compounds, and then hypertrophy is compounds and accessory movements. And in case you're wondering, okay, what is a compound movement? What is an accessory movement? Great question. So compound movements are movements that use multiple muscle groups at once. For example, if I'm doing bench press and I'm like on the bench and I'm like pushing down, pushing up. When I do that movement, I'm using my chest, I'm using some of my shoulders, I'm using my triceps as well, I'm using a little bit of my abs. So I'm using so many different muscle groups at once, and I'm using the bench press. So we call that a compound because it targets multiple muscle groups at once. On the contrary, you have accessory movements. Accessory movements, you have only one muscle group at a time that you're training. For example, pretend this was a dumbbell, and I'm doing dumbbell bicep curls. So I got my dumbbell in my hand, I'm lifting, lifting 2, lifting 3. As you can see, only my bicep is moving. And because I'm only using one muscle group, aka my biceps, we're gonna call that an accessory movement. Accessory movements only target one muscle group at a time, compound is multiple. And then obviously because you're targeting multiple muscle groups for a compound, your rest and recovery time is gonna be a little bit different. So typically for compound movements, you want to lift at a weight which is going to make you, need a rest for at least like 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, really depending on the compound exercise you're doing. If you're going super, super heavy on bench press, for example, like you might want to be resting about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes in between your workout sets. So that's how the compound movement, that's how the rest time looks like for those guys. When it comes to the accessory movements, because it's only one muscle group, that muscle group can kind of recoup and recover a lot quicker than all the muscle groups at once when doing a compound exercise. So for accessory movements, we want to make sure we're resting about anywhere between 60 to 90 seconds. That's like a good rest time for an accessory movement. So that's like the two main differences. And so let's get back into it. All right, so volume target. I'm gonna teach you how many sets to do in the gym in a way that even a 6-year-old could understand. So there's only two numbers you need. To know, 10 and 20. That's your range. If you're training something like chest, you wanna make sure you're doing 10 to 20 total sets per week. So if you hit chest twice a week, that's 5 to 10 sets per day. Why? Because under 10 sets is not enough to grow. And over 20 sets is too much to recover from. So start with 12 to 15 sets per week. If you're making progress, stick with it. If you're tired or sore all the time, drop it. And if you're not seeing results, bump it up. So a quick recap, 10 is the minimum, 20 is the maximum, stay in the middle and adjust based on your results. 10 and 20 for chest was just an example. Hold and screenshot the next slide for the optimal range for each muscle group. Now you just rinse and repeat. So we want to make sure we're doing 10 to 20 quality sets per muscle group per week. What does that even mean? Let's break it down. Quality set. So what does a quality set mean? So a quality set literally means, like, you guys know what a set is for working out, like literally just a set. But we want to make sure we're doing 10 to 20 quality sets per muscle group per week. So for example, if we're doing the upper lower full body split, let's just use chest as an example. I think a lot of people always want to grow their chest. That's like that's the biggest muscle group people always ask me for tips for chest. So let's just break that one down. So let's just say if we're doing the upper lower full body split, that means that it's only 3 days, right? So that means that we're gonna probably hit chest on the upper day because it's our upper body and chest is part of our upper body. And in the full body, we can also hit chest again. So let's just say we have the upper day, and then we have the full body day. So if it's 10 to 20 quality sets per muscle group per week, I actually made a video on this about like how many sets you should be doing. So I think I think a good place that's good to start with for most people is probably around like, that 12 set range. So let's just assume we're starting with 12 sets per week, 12 quality sets per week. That means we're gonna do 6 sets on the upper body day and maybe another 6 sets on the full body day. That's a little, yeah. And so then for the upper body day, these 6 sets, we might divide them into, maybe we might do 3 sets for the upper chest, and maybe 3 sets for like the middle to lower chest. So 3 upper and then 3 mid low. And then the 3 sets for the upper chest might look like something like maybe 1 set of chest fly, of incline chest fly, and then maybe 2 sets of incline chest press. So that's kind of how I want you to break it down. So when I say per group, so say it's 10 to 20 per group, right? But that includes the whole parts of the muscles. That includes the lower chest, the middle chest, and the upper chest. So it's 10 to 20 sets divided across the whole chest, not just 10 to 20 sets for the upper chest. So don't make that same mistake. So if I'm talking about biceps and I say for biceps you need 10 quality sets per week, right? Let's just say you need 10 quality sets per week for biceps. That's maybe 5 on the one day and then 5 on the other day. And so for biceps you have different parts, right? You have like this head, you have the short head, you have the long head. So there's like 3 different heads for the biceps, right? So you might want to split it up and do 2 short head sets, 2 mid head sets, 1 long head set. And then on the other day, you might flip it and do 2 long head sets, 2 mid, and then 1 short head set. And this is all going to depend on your genetic predispositions and your genetic advantages and disadvantages. So if you do have like smaller biceps, you might want to make sure that in your programming, instead of doing 10 sets, like what might be recommended, you might want to do 12 or 13. So you want to obviously adjust based off of how you look in the mirror and what needs to grow the most. Because there's some people who, yeah, they haven't really been to the gym that much, but they already have a pretty good base to start with. Like you look at them and you're like, oh, like, their chest is in a pretty good spot. It might not be like perfect, but like it's in a pretty good spot. So it really depends on what your starting points are. So you want to make sure you're building your program based off of that and not just copying someone else's program, because I think it's really easy to look at, these influencers online and kind of like look at their programs and be like, oh man, I'm going to copy that. And you copy it, you try it for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you don't get the results you want. But it's because, it wasn't for you. You're doing their stuff. You're not doing your program. So you want to make sure you're doing something that works for you. And if you want like the full in detail guide of how exactly to build the 3-day plan, I actually made that on my IG. I can actually link that in the description. I'll see if I can do that. I haven't tried it before, but I'll see if I can do that. Or I might just throw it in this video. So I'm actually not sure which one I'm going to do. So if you see it in this video, I give you a heads up. And if you just see a link in the description, I also gave you a heads up. So I'm gonna teach you how to work out 3 times per week and get in shape for the summer in a way that even a 6-year-old could understand. First things first, I want to address something. I get a lot of questions about recovery for the split, so I'm gonna break it down. So most guys ask, how do I recover if I train lower body and then do full body the next day? See, the real issue, you're thinking like a bodybuilder. You're not training for soreness, you're training for results. So let's get into the workout. Alright, so here's what I actually give my busy clients. Day 1 is gonna be push and pull. And the target areas will be chest, back, and shoulder. You're gonna do 3 compound movements, which are the ones right here, 1 core exercise, and then you're gonna pick between 2 to 3 accessory movements. And I wrote like some set ranges and rep ranges. You don't have to follow this exactly, but for the most part, this will work for you. For the core exercise, you're gonna do cable crunches. You're gonna do 3 for 20 reps. And for the accessory movements, I want you to pick 2 to 3 accessory movements depending on how much time you have and what your current goals are in regards to what muscles you're actually trying to grow. There's obviously other exercises you can do, but these are just my favorites, and these are the most effective that I found for myself and my clients when trying to lose fat, build muscle, all that good stuff. All right, so now day 2. I don't know if people take screenshots like that, but if you're trying to take a screenshot of the board, go crazy. Day 2, lower. Other than 2, these don't include a warm-up set. Go warm up before you actually attempt these so you don't hurt yourself and that you can actually do the exercises properly. All right, day 2 is a lower day. This is gonna be a strength-focused workout. Main compound lifts are gonna be goblet squats, RDLs, and walking lunges for 2 times 20 steps. So each time you do a step, that counts as a rep. 2 sets, but you're gonna do 20 steps. That makes sense. For core, you're gonna do 3 rounds. If you don't have an ab wheel, just do a weighted plank. And if you can't do a weighted plank, just do a regular plank. And if you can't do a regular plank, keep working until you can do a regular plank. For accessory movements, I want you to pick 2 to 3 movements on this list, depending on what your current goals are and how much time you have available to you. And I'll move out of the way now so you guys can screenshot if that's what you're trying to do. Boop. And now we're gonna get into the 3rd day, which is full body. Day 3, we're gonna do a full body workout. The compound lift, we're gonna do push-ups and pull-ups. Super basic exercises, but it's what a lot of people don't do. And if you're finding these pretty easy to do, I want you to do these weighted. Last compound movement for the full body day is gonna be a barbell squat. 3 sets, 8 reps. And you wanna obviously go as heavy as you possibly can without getting hurt, without being stupid. For your core, I want you to do some hanging leg raises. If you can't do leg raises where you bring your full leg up with the spinal flexion, then I'm gonna need you to do some knee raises where you just have to bring your knee up, which is only half the work, so it should be a little bit easier. And if you can't do that yet, then keep working until you can. 3 sets, 15 reps. Again, accessory movements, Arnold press, preacher curl, tricep push down, machine fly. Again, these are just my favorite exercises that have worked the best for myself and my clients when trying to lose fat, build muscle, all that good stuff. This is what I recommend, and I would recommend picking either between 2 to 3, depending on what your current goals are. But if there's other exercise you want to do, go crazy. For example, whenever I'm training on a 3-day workout plan, I always pick one muscle group of focus, and I make sure that in the accessory movements that I do, like the bonus accessory movements that I get to choose, I make sure that I pick accessory movements that are also going to target that specific muscle group. So for example, if I'm trying to really work on growing my chest and I'm doing a 3-day split, in my full body workout day, yes, I'm doing push-ups, which help for the chest, but I'm also gonna make sure that when I do my accessory movements, I'm picking something like a machine fly because that's also gonna help grow my chest. All you need to do is focus on compound movements and progressively overload each workout. This is how you're gonna get stronger without being sore for 5 days afterwards. But remember, the workouts is only 20% of the work. The other 80% comes from in the kitchen. So now that you have the game plan, all you gotta do is apply it, eat some real food, rinse, and repeat. Before I jump onto the next session, I actually wanted to talk about one of the things that really held me back the most while working at the bank. I used to kind of treat workouts, I kind of just winged it, you know? Whenever I finished work, whatever time that was, I would just be like, okay, well, I'll see how much time I have left. Okay, I got 45 minutes, okay? Whatever 45 minutes I have to do, I'll just work out with that. And that kind of mindset always made me put like fitness second, and I never prioritized it. And I would my mind would never be fully there. I would always lift, like I'm lifting, I'm not really fully there, if that makes sense. Like my mind's elsewhere. I'm thinking about like what emails I have to send, or I'm thinking about, oh man, there's a PowerPoint presentation I haven't finished. Yeah, you know, so much stuff like that. So that was like really the big thing for me. And it wasn't until I kind of made it a priority in my head that I actually started taking it seriously. And same with my workouts, right? Like, I think it's so easy to also not take your workouts seriously and to just, you know, just kind of wing it. You know, you go to the gym and you're like, okay, I'll pick these up. I can do some bicep curls. Okay, cool. Oh, the bench is free. Okay, yeah, let me go do some bench press. Okay, cool. What else can I do? Oh yeah, squats. Okay, let me just go do some squats. Like, it's so easy to kind of wing it, right? So one of the things that really helped me was that having like a structured plan every single time I went in, which I knew was going to get me results, because I'm one of those guys who, I don't know, this is maybe, I guess, one of my worst qualities is that when I first started, at least, I'm not like this anymore, thank God, but I would only want to do something if I knew with 100% certainty it was going to work. I was so scared of failing, I was so scared of being like judged by other people that I didn't necessarily want to take the chance and like fail in front of other people. You know, I always wanted to make sure that, okay, if I'm going to do this, I know it's going to work and I'm 100% certain. But the thing is, life doesn't work like that, right? You can't live life trying to like, you know, fully calculate everything. Obviously, you can make like calculated guesses and you can make educated guesses based off of, you know, information and whatnot, but you can't go through life like perfect. And that was one of my biggest problems that I had. I was trying to do everything perfect. I'm only going to do this workout if I know 100% that it's going to get me the results I want within the time frame I want. But it's like, you can't, like, that's not real. Like, you can't live like that. And so that's one of the things that kept me stuck for a while. Okay, so now that you know how to train, remember, training, only 20%. So it's important, but it's not like end all be all. The most important is nutrition. And so literally for my program, I have my guys in the gym 3 times a week. They're working, they're grinding, cool, but they spend most of their time in nutrition. I do want them to be aware of like, okay, what exactly are you putting into your body and why? Because that's still important, because when you are in those impromptu meetings or when you're on those work trips or you're traveling or you're on vacation, if you don't know what to put in your body and why, you're never gonna, like, you know, feel yourself the right way. And so I think it's so important to not only know like what to do, but why you need to do it. And so that's what we're gonna cover in the next topic, which is nutrition. And if there's any part, oh shit, I think I scratched. Okay, never mind, we're good. Okay, so if there's any part of this video that you take away, it is gonna be the nutrition part. And this is the part where, like, if you were paying attention for like most of the video, cool, but like now it's time to like lock in. And if you haven't been paying attention, thank you for watching the video thus far. I still appreciate it. But this is the part where, like, if there's anything you take away from this video, it's this. And so with nutrition, we all heard it's like 80% of the battle. So it really is when it comes to fitness. For myself personally, I built my body off 3 days working out at the gym and spending the other like part of the other 4 days of the week just prioritizing nutrition. And I think the part where people get it so backwards is that if we know that nutrition is 80% of the battle and training is only 20%, why do so many people put 20% of their time in nutrition and the 80% in training? They have it backwards. It's so messed up. It doesn't make any sense. So we're not going to be like most people. We're going to fix that, and we're going to make sure that nutrition is 80% of what we do. So how do we fix that? We make sure that we only go to the gym 3 times per week, and then the days that we're not at the gym, we're either in the grocery store, probably, hopefully not in the grocery store, but we're buying the right foods, or we're actually making time to prepare and cook the right foods. Simple. So like the thing is, nutrition is like super easy. It's super basic, but people just love to overcomplicate it for no reason. So I'm gonna break it down for you and show you exactly what you need to focus on for nutrition. I'm going to teach you exactly what to eat to get in amazing shape this summer in a way that even a 6-year-old could understand. So there's 3 steps. Pick your main character, build your structure, and eat like a CEO, not a teenager. Every meal starts with protein. Pick one from this list. And no, I didn't list every single protein known to man. I just listed my favorites. These also rank from best to worst protein to calorie ratio. So at the top, we have more protein and fewer calories. And at the bottom, it's still good, just a little bit heavier. Got that? Cool. Next, you're going to delete all the fancy recipes from your phone. You don't need variety. You just need repeatability. Each meal is going to have 1 protein from step 1, 1 carb source, and 1 fat source. The goal is to eat mainly whole foods and aim for an 80-20% balance. That's 80% real food and 20% whatever you want. Step 3, stop snacking and eating like a kid all day. Like having sweet treats every 30 minutes. You just need 2 to 3 real meals per day. You don't need a new diet. You just need to have protein at every meal, a structure you can actually stick to, and a discipline to eat like a grown man. And now that you know what to eat, you just have to rinse and repeat. So first thing with nutrition, no more meal plans. Like, no more meal, please, no more meal plans. Like, that is something that we're done with. We want to make sure that we're flexible and that we're not like confined to, you know, a piece of paper, which is telling us what to eat, when to eat it, why to eat it. So no more meal plans. So the main thing with nutrition is going to be protein. Protein is like the building block for like literally everything that we're going to be doing. I want you to understand that like protein also is going to make or break your physique. If you don't have enough protein, you won't look the way you want, period. I'm just going to break down a couple things about protein right now too, just so you have that background knowledge, because I think it's not so common to a lot of people. So first things first, when it comes to protein, if you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to build muscle, you need protein regardless. This hopefully will like make you understand why exactly you need protein. So if you're trying to lose weight, your body needs protein. You have protein in your muscles, obviously, and then you can get protein in from your diet. If you don't give your body enough protein from your diet, aka your nutrition, your body's just going to take it from your muscles. Why? Because it's already in your body. It's already there. I mean, it's so much easier for my body to get protein from just taking the protein out from my arms as opposed to waiting to get it from, my diet. Which, if I'm not giving it enough protein consistently, it's like, oh, I don't know when the next meal is going to come in, so let me just take it from like a source that I know I can get it like easily, which is like the muscle that you have in your body. If that's the case, we want to make sure we're giving our body so much protein to the point where it doesn't necessarily have to worry about where it's getting this next protein in from. And the reason why is because if you're losing weight, right, you're in a calorie deficit. I feel like I don't have to explain calorie deficit because you've heard it all the time, but you know what, I'll just explain it just because. Calorie deficit is when you burn more calories than you consume. And because you burn more calories than you're eating, you actually lose weight because your body's working harder than what you're giving it. And so there's going to be a little bit of a gap. And that gap is going to be weight. And what that weight is composed of is going to be muscle, is going to be fat, and it's going to be water. But depending on our protein intake, that will determine if the weight that we lose is mainly going to be muscle, or if it's mainly going to be water, or if it's going to be fat. And obviously, I think most people, when they want to lose weight, they don't want to lose weight. They want to lose fat. They want to lose the love handles. They want to lose, their gut that's spilling over. They want to lose fat. They don't want to lose muscle. They don't want to lose their arms. They obviously want like a more toned look. Toned, that word doesn't even exist, but they want like a more like defined look. But that defined look comes from losing body fat, not from losing muscle. So when your protein isn't high enough, your body will be losing muscle. It's going to eat up the muscle that you already have, which is what most people do not want. But when your protein is high enough, your body is going to be like, okay, well, I got enough protein. I don't need to take from my muscle anymore. I can just directly get rid of the fat. That's how it works. It's literally that simple. But people have that backwards. And then it's the same for when you're trying to put on muscle. And so when you're trying to put on muscle, if you don't have enough protein in you and you're eating more calories, because in order to lose weight, you have to eat less than you burn. But then in order to put on weight and put on muscle, you have to eat more than you burn. And so when you eat more than you burn, you're going to store extra weight. Whether or not that weight is going to be muscle or if it's going to be fat will be determinant on the fact of if you're eating enough protein or not. If you're not eating enough protein, well, sorry, you're just going to be putting on fat. But if you're eating enough protein and you're in like a slight surplus of calories, you're eating slightly more than what you burn, and you're eating enough protein, you'll be putting on muscle. So that's kind of how it works. Those are the dynamics of like why protein is so important. So when you see like people like myself stressing about protein all the time, it's not because I love protein. I mean, protein's great and everything, but if you don't have the protein, I mean, you won't have the look that you want. You won't have the muscles. You won't get the six-pack abs. Can I even do the six-pack abs? Yeah. There's no flex, by the way. You won't have the six-pack abs. You won't have like anything, right? So that's why protein's so important. So how much protein should you be eating? Great question. And so we're breaking it down right here. We're breaking it down today. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at your goal body weight. So if you're a 200-pound man right now, and your goal is to be 175 pounds, great. So take 175 pounds, and I want you to multiply that by 0.8 to 1 gram. And so that's going to be your range of protein. So at the minimum, you need to hit 0.8, and at the maximum, you need to hit 1 gram. I don't think I need to do the calculations because, I mean, you should be able to calculate your goal body weight by 0.8 to 1. So I'll leave it at that. And then if you're asking, okay, well, how much protein do I need to eat per every meal? Also a great question. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the realistic amount of meals you eat per day. Some people, they eat 2 meals a day realistically. Some people, they realistically eat 4 meals per day. So whatever your number is, take your goal protein and divide that by the realistic number of meals that you eat every single day. And this is going to give you how much protein needs to be in each meal, period. It's literally that simple. So now that you know how much protein needs to be in each meal, then you're probably asking, okay, what are the best sources to get protein from? I made a video on that on my Instagram. I could probably link that here, or I could play it. I'm gonna see if it's best for me to actually just play the video here and like throw it in, or if it's best for me to just like put a screenshot. I'll see. But if you see a screenshot, if you see the video right after this, then you'll know exactly what choice I made. Another thing too is 1 palm is equal to 25 to 30 grams of protein. I'm going to teach you how to eat enough protein without tracking anything in a way that even a 6-year-old could understand. You don't need MyFitnessPal, you just need your hand. So 1 palm is equal to about 30 grams of protein. So as long as you hit that 3 to 4 times a day, you're good. Eggs, chicken, beef, Greek yogurt, just pick 3, repeat it daily, and you're good. But just 1 palm is the baseline, and you're not average, you're efficient. So here's how to hit 150 grams of protein per day in just 2 ways. So instead of 1 palm, go for 2 at lunch and dinner. That's about 60 grams per meal. And then you can use your protein shake as a tool. 1 scoop is around 25 grams, and 2 scoops is about 50 grams. So you can have these post-workout or during your workday. You don't need 6 meals, you just need 2 loaded plates, 1 shake, and 1 snack. And that's how you're gonna hit 150 grams of protein on autopilot. Again, for most people, 1 palm is about like 25 to 30-ish grams of protein. So that's like a pretty good way to kind of like measure. And this works for like most things, like Greek yogurt, chicken, beef. That's like a good measure. So take that as you will. And then when you're out on the road, you can kind of look down at your palm and be like, my protein that I need to hit every single meal is about like 45 grams. Perfect. So when I'm out on the road, I need to make sure that every single meal I have has about 1 palm. So just take it as you will. If you don't want to use it, totally fine. But that's one way that you can kind of like calculate your protein quickly on the go. So now that we know what protein is, we know why it's important, we know how much of it you need, and you know how to kind of like how much of it you need per meal, and we know how to kind of like calculate it on the road. I do have a couple of rules that you need to follow. And these rules are extremely important just because without following these nutrition rules, everything you're doing is going to kind of go to waste. And I would hate to see a lot of your hard work go to waste because obviously, you know, making a decision to actually put your fitness first is obviously pretty difficult. But now knowing that, okay, you're putting in all this work and now you're going to get 0 out of it is even more frustrating. And that leads to so many people just like crashing and burning when it comes to fitness. So I don't want you to be one of them. So I got some rules. And so it's going to be important that you actually follow these rules. You might want to write some of these down, take a screenshot, do your thing. But I'm going to turn around and write them now. All right, so now we're getting into some of the rules that I have. So first rule is no alcohol. And this might upset some of you guys, but hey man, I'm not here to make anyone feel good about fitness. I'm just here to give you guys the honest truth that you need in order to kind of see the results that you want. When you are drinking alcohol, this literally like destroys everything that you're trying to do when it comes to fitness. It's harder for your body to burn fat. It's not impossible, it's way harder. It's harder for your body to, it's impossible for your body to build muscle. It makes so much of your things harder to do in your body. So it's just so much so to the point where it's just not even worth it. And so for me personally, I think that a lot of people need to spend a little bit of time not drinking because of how frequently they drink. And I know for myself, I was around a lot of alcohol when I was working at RBC. Like every single client dinner, there was wine being poured. There were drinks, there were shots, all you can eat, open bar, this and that and this and that. And it's hard for a lot of people to say no to that. And I get it. I used to drink before, I don't drink anymore. But especially when I started to take my fitness seriously, I stopped drinking completely. It's one of the things where you have to decide, do you want the alcohol more or do you want the body more? And if you want the body more, then you're going to have to put the alcohol down. But if you want the alcohol more, then you're going to have to put the dreams of wanting the body down too. So again, both are possible, 100%. But for most people who are starting off in an unfavorable position, it becomes pretty challenging to get to a point where you're, functioning optimally all the time while also drinking consistently. So obviously there's ways around it. For example, if you are to go out, you may be limited to 1 drink of alcohol per dinner, or maybe 1 drink of alcohol per week. And then you have something like maybe like either a glass of wine, which doesn't do that much damage to you, or you have something where you take like only 1 shot or 1 mixed drink, but you make sure the mixed drink is mixed with something like a 0-calorie or sugar-free diet soda, something like that. That can help minimize the damage. So that's kind of like what we want to be going for. But for the most part, staying away from alcohol will significantly impact your progress in a good way, in a positive way. All right, so next rule is going to be no takeout except for a client dinner, and we're going to make sure we're applying the damage control protocol. So for the most part, I think people always fall back to Uber Eats, or people fall back to takeout just because it's convenient and they don't want to actually do the hard work of figuring out and eating like the right whole foods that they should be eating to kind of like fuel their body the right way. And so what we're going to do, and what I want you guys to do as well after watching this video, is to only maybe rely on these takeouts or eating out when you're going to a client dinner or when you're going on a work trip vacation, etc., 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 etc. When that becomes your default, you kind of like lose that ability to really think for yourself when it comes to making strong food choices. So that's going to be the most important part. We also want to make sure we're applying the damage control protocol. So essentially what this is just making sure that what we do eat, we're picking like a lean meat from the menu. So first off, we start with protein. Protein first always. So when you're scanning the menu, we're making sure we're picking a protein focused meal. So whether it's a steak, whether it's a fish, like a salmon, or whether it's like a chicken, a roasted chicken, whatever. And we also want to make sure we're picking something like which isn't fried and which isn't high in fats. So stuff like fried food, like fried calamari, fried fish, fried chicken. We don't want to be picking fried foods because these are like heavily doused in oil. So we want to make sure we're avoiding those things. Now that that's off the table, we also want to make sure that the vegetables that we're taking as well, or the sides that we're taking to eat our protein with, that also isn't doused in like, you know, oils and stuff like that. I'd prefer more of like a grilled or like a steamed option, because those are cooked a lot differently and they'll have more of the natural nutrients in them. And not only that, it'll also be a lot lower in calories and probably a lot more filling as well. And it won't make you feel like crap after because it's not full of like heavy oils and all that. And then for the sides, we want to make sure we're staying away from, like, again, no fried foods. You want to maybe lean towards maybe stuff like mashed potatoes or like a baked potato, for example. A baked potato instead of French fries, for example. Or you might just do a side of veggies. Or you might just do, what's another common side? Anything sweet potatoes is really good. What's another common side that people have? Rice. Rice is a great one. Again, these are just like pretty basic things, but it's stuff that a lot of people don't do. So I thought it's important for me to kind of let you know that if you are trying to do the taking out, cool, but make sure you're just putting these protocols on. And then obviously we're limiting the alcohol as well. So ideally we'd be following the first rule of no alcohol, but if for whatever reason we have to have alcohol, we'd be limiting it to 1 drink. So we're doing like a wine, red wine preferably, because I believe red wine is a little bit more healthier than white wine. Hopefully not like a hard alcohol, but a mixed drink with like a diet soda to carry on. And no sodas, like you should not be drinking sodas at this point. If you want a Coke, have a Coke Zero. If they don't have Coke and they have Pepsi, okay, we'll have a Pepsi Zero. If they don't have that, well, just drink water. You should be defaulting to water anyways. And for water, we want to make sure that we're drinking anywhere between like 2.5 to 3 liters per day, every day. That's like a pretty realistic goal, and it's a good goal to have. A lot of people, again, don't drink their water. Even me, it's one of the things that I struggle with a lot, drinking my water on a consistent basis. So that's the second rule. Third rule is going to be no processed foods. We're going to be eating whole foods only. Again, 80% of what we put in our body, I want this to be whole foods. What are whole foods? Whole foods are literally things that grew from the earth. So anything, like any like meats, like, I don't know, like steak, chicken, beef, whatever. These are like whole foods. These come from animals. Or any like grains, oats, rice, quinoa, stuff like that. That came from the earth. Or salads, like legumes, like lettuce, cabbage, spinach, kale, stuff like that. These are all like fruits, strawberries, blueberries, mangoes. Like these are fruits. Like these things grew from the earth. So those are whole foods. Processed foods are stuff that came from like a lab. So think of like a Twinkie, for example, or like a cake. It didn't grow from the ground. It was created in a facility. You know, like those box cakes or those box stuff where you just have to add water. Like that's not real. Like that's not real food. Like it is real food. Like obviously you can eat it and everything, but like it's not real food, if you know what I mean. So we want to make sure that we are eating 80% whole foods, and then the other 20% you can eat whatever you want. But as long as 80% is coming from like real foods, you're good. So again, you don't have to overcomplicate this. It's pretty simple for the most part. The other thing too I want to talk about quickly is that, you know, when I was at RBC, I kind of ate whatever I wanted. I would literally sometimes, when I'm bored and hungry and tired of working, I would literally just get up and walk around the office and see. They didn't want to bring any snacks in today. Sometimes people would bring donuts. Sometimes there'd be cake. Sometimes people would be at a client dinner and the client would have brought like all the pastries in the world you could imagine. And there's so much that we have to like put it into, you know, the dining hall, and it's just full from head to toe. But it's like different desserts and pastries, and then they're like go crazy, you know, and you can just take whatever you want home and everything. So that's the environment that I grew up in while working in the corporate scene. And trust me, it was so hard to say no, because for the most part I didn't. Like for the most part, I'm seeing cookies, I'm seeing cake, long day, oh, I just got staffed on another project. You know what? Let me just little something to take the edge off of. You know, let's have a little cake, do a little lap around the office, come back. Oh, take a little chocolate chip cookie this time. Do a little wrap. Oh, someone brought donuts. Oh, I'll take a donut too. Like, it was so easy to overeat on the wrong things just because of the environment I was in. But one of the things that kind of like helped me really snap out of it was seeing how much more energy I got when I did eat clean and when I stopped eating some of the processed foods. It's so hard for me to kind of like try to convince you or try to tell you like, hey, like don't eat this and eat this. But like when you actually switch your diet, like when you, I'm not talking about like just thinking about it, when you actually make the change and you start eating majority whole foods, you'll see how much more energy you have on a day-to-day basis, and you won't want to go back. That alone will make you not want to go back. And then if you stick with it long enough, you'll start to see your body change. You'll start to get the abs, you'll start to get the muscles, and you'll be like, damn, like why haven't I always been doing this? Why was I stuck in this trap of just eating whatever I wanted or whatever and thinking I was free? The thing is, I think so many people kind of, I don't know. It's hard. Like, it's hard because even me, I was caught in that trap. And like, you know, I'm grateful now looking back. And looking back now, I'm just like, hey guys, like that's like not the right way to go. But I can only say that because I've been in this position where it's like, okay, well, this is how I came out of it. So now I just treat my meals like I treat my meetings. I make sure to have structure and make sure to have intention. And if they don't have structure, don't have an intention, I'm not eating it. And so I found out treating my meals in that way has given me a lot of like great results when it comes to eating, and it really simplifies it a lot for me. And again, sticking to that rule of like 80% whole foods, I'm telling you, is literally such a game changer that you got no idea. But anyways, that is the one rule that I have for it. Then just make sure 80% of the food you do eat come from like a good source. And then the last thing I'll say, last tip that really helped me for my meals is, if you're really tired of like having to start over when it comes to cooking, when it comes to, you know, groceries and everything, just automate what works. So find what you already like to do, and then just like, I don't know, buy in bulk, and then like have specific days of the week where you cook it or you have it prepared for you. Have a certain amount already planned out for you that you eat every single day. And if you can kind of like stick to the different rules I set, and then also the other principles that we talked about with protein and everything, you will get the body that you're looking for. And again, nutrition is 80% of the battle. So this is the part where you want to make sure that you're really doubling down on. And then the last chapter that we're going to get into is the actual lifestyle. So what you do on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, we'll hop into that. So when it comes to lifestyle, there's a couple things that I want to touch on. So you got your sleep, you got your steps, and then you got light. So this is going to be a weird one and probably a new one for a lot of you guys, but I'll kind of take it one step at a time and make sure I go into detail for each part. So when it comes to sleep, I mean, like it's 2025, I think we all know we need to sleep about like 7 to 8 hours per night, but obviously it's not realistic for like everyone. But what I did find that was funny, like it's an interesting correlation, because the people I've worked with who actually make the most money, they actually spend the most time sleeping. When I was making like the least money I've ever made, I was sleeping like 2 hours. Sleep is obviously a big part, and I think there's a big correlation between physical health and how much you're sleeping, and then also how much money you're making. Again, that's just my opinion. Next up is going to be steps. So steps is going to be anywhere between 8 to 10K per day, and 8 to 10K should be like the goal, and that's like a pretty good sustainable goal if you are getting up and getting a little active during the day. It doesn't take too long, especially if you can kind of like break this down into a couple ways. The biggest way I kind of got my steps in every single day at RBC was I would make sure I was doing walking meetings. And so on the days I would go into the office, or the days I was just working from home, I would make sure that if I had meetings on that day, I would literally just make sure that I could either connect to my work phone and I could like put my headphones in and actually take the meeting while on a walk. Or if I was meeting in person with someone, I would suggest, hey, instead of just sitting down in this coffee room and doing this, because we don't necessarily need our computers, what if we just like were to walk around and talk? That way we both felt like we were being a little bit more productive. You know, we're hitting that lifestyle factor too, we're getting our steps in, and it was in a way where, you know, we're still doing work in a sense. So that's one of the things, and I was suggesting, obviously if you are, you're an exec, you're watching this and you're someone who, you know, you can't necessarily afford to, you know, walk around all day at work and you have to be at your office just in case someone like pokes by or, you know, needs to see you, totally fine, but try to find other pockets throughout the day where you are able to kind of like get some steps in. So whether that's like in between lunch, whether that's in between meetings, even if it's just 5-10 minutes here, if you can do that a couple times during the day, that does add up by the end of the day. So you want to make sure that you are trying, like making a conscious effort to actually walk around a little bit during the day. It pays off. And then the next is going to be light. So sometime in the morning, we want to make sure we get some sun in our eyes. So get outside. Ideally, the perfect time is like right when you wake up to kind of like set your circadian rhythm. It makes falling asleep a little bit easier at night as well. But I know it's not always possible for some people. Some people need to wake up, shower, and then get right on the train to work. So I get it. There's different scenarios and different things apply to different people. But for the most part, if you are able to get some sun in your eyes in the first sometime in the morning before lunch, before noon, that's perfect. And then also if you can get like some sun in your eyes in the PM as well. So that's after work, going on a walk. Like, bottom line, just get outside and get some sunlight. Because vitamin D has so much different and positive effects for us that are often underlooked. The more sunlight you can get, the better. Sunlight has such a positive correlation with, like, you know, how we feel on a day-to-day basis, and then also like how easy it is for us to fall asleep. So if you are consistently getting sunlight in the morning and in the evening, like, you make your life so much easier when it comes to actually falling asleep faster. And then if you're getting sunlight, you're probably outside. Good chance you're walking too, so you can kind of like kill two birds with one stone in that sense. So, oh crap, let me pick that up. Okay, so then I want to talk about what happens if you don't do this stuff. So if you have poor sleep, this typically leads to low testosterone, higher craving, so it's harder to adhere and stick to your actual diet. And then it also leads to bad workouts and bad recovery. Obviously, these are all negative things that we just don't want, and these can be easily avoided if we just fix one thing, which is our sleep. And let's just say we do kind of fall down this rabbit hole and we're kind of in that state where we're working out and not seeing the results we want. If you're not seeing the results you want and you're eating well and you're doing your steps and you're doing every single thing else right, it's probably because you have poor recovery. And poor recovery, right here, is going to lead to no progress. So the progress that you're looking for in the gym, you just won't find it, unfortunately, because you need to recover from it. And I think most guys feel like they are under-trained, but for the most part, in reality, they're actually just under-recovered. And they don't give their body enough time to actually catch up with the fatigue and with the stress they've placed on their body. And so you need to make sure that you're actually giving your body a chance to recover and pick itself back up before you kind of like keep hammering it with the workouts and before you keep hammering it with the protein. Because if you're doing all the right things and you're not seeing the changes you want, like, that's 99% of the chance you're just not recovering the right way. And so fixing recovery mainly starts with fixing your sleep, but the other part that plays into recovery a lot is going to be your nutrition as well. So you want to make sure if your sleep is good, your nutrition's good, like, that will carry the bulk of it. That will carry the bulk of your recovery. And then there's other lifestyle factors we can get into, but for the most part, and I think for most people, it's not super necessary. And when I say other lifestyle factors, I'm talking about stuff like cold plunge, sauna, like massage therapy. Like, these stuff will help, yes, for sure. But for one, it's not accessible to most people, or it's not as easy to fit into the lifestyle for most people. And two, like, it'll help out a little bit. The thing that will do the most is like the nutrition and the sleep. So because the nutrition and the sleep will probably carry 80% of the weight, just put like 100% of your effort in those. And if you can do 100% of those, great. Then if you have more free time and you have like extra resources and capabilities, cool. Now you can kind of like shift those over to trying to see if you can add in cold plunge, sauna, heat there. Like, there's so many other things you can do, which aren't bad, but it's just unrealistic for a lot of people, especially those on like tight schedules. And of course, if you have any questions on any of this when it comes to recovery, feel free to hit me on the DMs on Instagram. Like, shoot me a message and be like, hey, like, this is what I'm kind of thinking for my recovery. What do you think? I'll give you my opinion, all that good stuff. So now that we've covered the lifestyle part, I'm going to wrap this up. Just a quick recap. This is the system that rebuilt my life. Protein is obviously just going to be like our body weight times 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, of our goal body weight. Then C is going to be for calories burned. So this is really just going to be our steps plus actually lifting. And then T is just going to be our time in the gym, which is just going to be 3 times per week. If you can do more, great. If you can't, don't sweat it. I think what most high performers need to understand is, just like in work, I mean, you only got to where you were at, not necessarily by working hard, but by working smart and hard. But when it comes to fitness, you don't necessarily have to work smart and hard. You just have to work smart. That will get you the results that you're looking for. And then I think another thing too, which is something that a lot of you guys need to hear, is that you're not stuck, you're just overcomplicating it. And so this is the end of the video. If you want to work directly with myself, you can apply to work with me directly in the link below. And if you have any questions on this, shoot me a message on Instagram. I respond to all my messages in a timely manner, of course. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from you guys, and I appreciate you guys watching this far. So that's all for me. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.